what happened is I told him, I said, do me a favor. Tell me when the decision makers are in the room, when they're going to be walking one of these properties, and I promise I'll go over there. I said, but they need to be there. And sure enough, man, there was the whole corporate staff was in from Arizona. It was a weird deal, but I got in front of them and I kind of crashed somebody else's job site, I think. But that was one of them. And it was like, hey guys, but
welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview real construction owners who are doing big things in their market. Today, we have a very special guest, Marcus Robbins, owner of Coltcam Consulting. He started off as an investor and then got into construction, doing multifamily renovations. He does tons of work for large hedge funds companies, and he does a lot of investing. Today, you're going to learn a lot, so stay tuned. What's up, Marcus? How you doing?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
Man, I'm truly blessed and highly favored, living the dream out here in Costa Rica.
I know. I saw the clip yesterday on your story. I think I was like, I don't know, driving home in traffic, and you're hanging on the side of a car, and your wife's driving, and you're driving. Like I can see the beach in the background, and I'm in traffic, so I'm a bit envious. Thank you,
man. The waves were gnarly yesterday. They're like 10 foot. We went on a hike through the jungles to a waterfall. It was date day. It was nice.
That's awesome, man. Well, the traffic was epic as well, too. I'll send you videos next time. So.
Oh, dude, bring your wife and kids. Let's go. I'd love to connect with you. I'll show you all the best spots.
Yeah, I've only been once. I think it was Hako Beach is where we were.
That place is cool. That's the party town. You need to come to Dominical. That's where it's at.
Hako Beach, my surfing story. 2-second surfing story. I grew up skateboarding. So I'm like, I can surf, right? It's not a big deal. I get out there and I just get pummeled and literally humbled myself, drug my board back to the beach. But I was like being slammed on the ocean floor. Yeah. That's the real deal out there. Like that's not a joke.
Endless summers, 12-foot waves. Like this tests your ability against the forces of nature for sure.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Nuts. Well, thanks for having me on. I know that we had some trouble connecting for a while, but thank you.
Yeah, I really want to dive deep, Marcus. I've always looked up to you. You and we were connected in the Cutco world, and you were like a legend in that arena. And then I saw you get into construction, but instead of me telling your story, take us back memory lane. Tell us how you got into construction, how you got into investing. Paint the picture for our audience.
Yeah, so I started off, as you had mentioned, with Cutco. And so, I'm forever grateful for the Cutco experience. That's where I got my thick skin, right? I always use the story that Cutco was the opportunity that taught me to get my teeth kicked in, pick them up, and keep on going. Like that's the analogy I always use. It gave you that thick skin. And I was with Cutco from August 5th of 2000. So I started right out of high school and went all the way up until I was 30 years old. I'd hit the Hall of Fame with Cutco. It was cool to be able to, the things we achieved. I think I represented our offices about $12 million in sales during that time. And it was amazing, great experience. But at that point, I had just had my first son. I was 30 years old. And looking back, I didn't really have any tangible assets that my blood, sweat, and tears that I could show or pass on a legacy to my kids. And so really, man, it's funny because like you said, I'm an investor that got into construction. And so this is the segue on how that happened. I actually was looking to get into real estate and didn't really know where to go. I actually tried to get into flipping homes. And it's funny that, nobody would lend me money back then. Like, now it's if I had $1 for everybody that said, man, you need $1 million, I want to partner in deals with you. But back then, I couldn't get 20 grand to get a loan to flip a $100,000 house. And so looking, and I stumbled across a need with the South Texas area that oil was blowing up. So like down in South Texas, it's the Eagle Ford Shale, huge demand for housing. And so I figured out a way to kind of put some things together, borrow some money, and I actually opened up my first RV park. I developed the RV park. And so to kind of back up here, I was going from working in an office, right? Had a Porsche or a suit every day. Now all of a sudden I'm developing an RV park, which I'm not, talk to my wife, I can barely hammer a nail into a wall. Like I'm not, anybody that knows me knows I'm not handy or mechanically inclined.
Same here.
But I was up for the challenge, I'm like, man, and it was one of those deals where there was no plan B. And that's what I remember when I became a Cutco manager. People always asked, how were you successful as a new manager? And that was my answer. Like my back was against the wall. I don't come from money. Like there's nobody that's going to bail me out. And so, I just on a whim started developing that RV park. I used my Cutco experience, obviously, for the marketing and the sales aspect, built it up to a really solid business. And during the time after I developed that, I actually went on to develop 3 other properties. When I stopped developing properties, I actually noticed that I have this skill set. I never thought about being a general contractor. I didn't know what the hell a general contractor was, honestly. Like I was just building these things and doing it myself and working on, my work ethic. But I noticed that I had a great team and there were people that would pay others and let them mark it up just to bring your guys to the job site, right? And bid the work. And so that's how I actually got into general contracting. It was a byproduct of developing my own properties for my investments. And and then literally just started using my guys and slowly got into things. So we got into, as you mentioned, for multifamily, like large scale multifamily renovations. So we will take an apartment complex, somebody buys like a C-level complex, and we'll improve the asset, right? So we'll do the full renovation, generally anywhere from $1 million to $2 million job, normally about a 16-month project. And then got into the insurance world with large loss insurance commercial claims. And we did that from about 2017 to 2021. So that was a very quick run through of my history there, but that's kind of the long and short of it.
That's incredible. So I want to dive a little deeper in that because you just decided to become a developer of an RV park. And first off, what are the steps to do that? You see the land, you saw that the location was needed. What do you get? An architect, you get an engineer, draw the plans, get an architect to do some mock-ups, and then you got to find all the subs. Like on a high level, what were the steps for that?
Yeah, so you nailed the first part, right? It's the land acquisition. So you're looking for land, and money's always made in the land acquisition, right? Like anybody can go out and buy land and develop it, but land's that's the make or break. Like it's not the development costs, especially for your audience. These are all construction guys. Like they know how to put together a construction budget, so the land acquisition, finding that, getting hooked up, whether it's with a good broker that can help you run comps and find the right land, buy it right. And then from there, you'll start doing, I don't ever put together a business model per se, right? I just know I have, for an RV park, if I'm looking for X amount of sites, what that will yield per month. I'll go and assess like all the competitors, their websites, right? Do like the secret shopper calling, figure out what's the market paying in that area. And for me, and for an RV park developer and owner, like there's certain markets that pay, $300, and there's certain markets that pay $900 a month for an RV lot. And there's certain markets that pay $40 a day and certain markets that pay $100 a day. So that's, for me, that's kind of how I'll identify the geographical area, is based on what market's commanding the most rent. And then from there, you'll go into a site plan, and then you'll, engage. And I suggest people bootstrap this stuff. Like, don't go hire an engineer out of the gate. You can go and kind of have the conceptualized idea of what you want to do, and go to Fiverr and have somebody put together, for $70, a basic site map, and see where that gets you. And then you can start poking around the municipalities, make sure that it's zoned to do what you want to do. And from there, when you've got all your due diligence done, and again, you can do this before you actually close on the property. So for the audience, if these construction guys aren't, familiar with real estate, you generally give yourself 90 or 120 days to do due diligence on the land. You'll do your due diligence there, and you can do that for generally only having about $1,000 down for the option fee. So you do all your due diligence, find out if it's going to work, get as much done that you possibly can by yourself and with your resources. And then if you think you're ready to pull the trigger, then you would jump in and hire like your civil engineer, and you'd get into surveying and those things. But that's the kind of the evolution of that.
Nice. Okay. So how many RV parks do you own now?
Right now, I've got 4 RV. They're kind of mixed use. Some are RV parks, some are RV and mobile. But 4 properties. I just sold. I had 5. I just had a fairly large exit for 1 property. So the excitement now is I've got the exit. So now, perfect timing for an investor, because there were no deals out there the past couple of years. And now that we're seeing the correction in the economy, right? Like things are, cash is king in this economy, right? Because people can't pencil deals nowadays if you're taking on debt. You've got to have cash, right? Even if you're not going to be able to take on like a 70-30 split. Somebody really needs capital right now because of the interest rates. Like you just can't make the deals pencil. So I'm excited. I've had a chance to get into commercial office space. I've acquired 2 commercial offices right here in San Antonio, like in the medical center. And and so I'm working on actively looking for deals. So if anybody in the Texas market, mobile home RV park, any of your listeners, I'm definitely down to collaborate and also help. If anybody has questions, I'll give you all my contact later on. I'd love to help out the contractor community, looking to dabble into investments and help out if I can.
I love that. It's all about collaborate to dominate. Curious, you mentioned that you started doing the multifamily large loss claims, which is like the roofer's dream. What was the evolution of that? It seems like you have to be well connected in the investor space. What were the first steps and how did you get into that space?
Backing up real quick, you said collaborate. And so one of the things, you talked about connections. I need to pick your brain, whether it's on this call or some other time, about government contracts, because that's something that I know, government contracts are one of those deals that people are like, everybody I'm surrounded with, they're like, oh man, too much red tape. You got to have your shit together, right? For lack of a better term. So I'm fired up. We need to connect sometime, and you can be the Yoda, for me on the government.
I would love to. Like, I love that. One of my students, he texted yesterday. I put it on my reel. He just got awarded a $4 to $5 million development job, following the principles that I taught him. So, like, I would be honored to teach you that stuff. But back to what we were talking about. Thanks for that plug, by the way. Back to what we were talking about. How did you get into that large loss space? Like, what's the first steps?
So with large loss, it was a storm, right? That popped up. It started off as hailstorms in your local market, being in Texas, right? So the roofing space, and that's just like your residential hailstorms. And I think that's how everybody starts, right? In the roofing industry. And a lot of these guys, they start off as roofers and then they become contractors to do full service. And dude, I've got my opinions on that as well too. Believe me, when it comes to large loss stuff, and we can get there because I've got some strong opinions about what to do and what not to do when it comes to.
I'd love to hear it. Lessons learned.
Yes, oh man. So, it started off, I think it was, what was it? Hurricane Harvey in Port Aransas was what I would consider our first exposure to really large commercial projects. And, we went down there. It was a referral. We had one friend that had one condo, and he's like, guys, man, I've got 3 feet of water in my condo. It's my parents' condo. We all kind of share it. And we went down there to help him out. We're like, yeah, we'll bring some guys down. Went down there and we noticed just complete devastation. Like Hurricane Harvey was, that and Laura were the 2 biggies, right? That just, it's something you can't unsee. Like we showed up boots on the ground right when they opened up the island for people to come in. But it started with back to your question, there was no inside connection of, man, we have this guy that owns a apartment complex, or this is way pre us having those connections where we were just trying to find our way, right? So we went down there with one lead, and that one lead turned into the condo association. So we started off with one unit and we ended up doing the condo association. That condo association turned into the neighbor condo association. And then somebody went to a church that we remodeled the church. And this was all roofing and full restoration. This is prior to us doing like mold and water restoration. So we would sub that out, but we would still handle it. So to answer your question, man, it was for the large loss stuff. Harvey, one condo turned into 4 years, and I can't millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of restoration. And a little nugget on that side for those of you guys that are looking to ever do like hurricane restoration, I will warn you, okay, because you get down there and you're like, man, a condo's like a condo association is like an apartment complex. You're like, dude, this is a commercial job, and we're like, man, we're gonna get to help all these people out, and it's a great opportunity for us and our staff. But I'll warn you guys, condo associations are like dealing not with 100 units, 100 owners. Okay, so if you're a roofer, condos are different because you're representing the HOA, which is the roof, the walls, studs out. Roofing is good, okay? Exterior renovations, good. Interior renovations, you're doing 100 residential interior renovations. So we learned that and got, that's a beating.
What was like, it sounds like it was painful. What was the lessons you learned from that? What were some of the takeaways for somebody who gets put in that opportunity? What would you share to that person?
Yeah, I would tell you that when you're dealing, it's a catastrophe, right? Like we can never, I don't know if you've ever been a part of, like I've been a part of it as a contractor, but I've never gone to my house one day and seen the roof ripped off or my house blown down. So you're dealing with there's a lot of emotions there. There's a lot of uncertainty. And as a contractor, we're down there helping people out, right? Like yes, it's an opportunity for everybody. We're helping people out. We are in a business, right? Like we're not a nonprofit, but there's so much uncertainty on the front end. I would tell these guys that if anybody's going to get involved and go storm chase or go down in these areas, you need to be buttoned up. Like you need to have the proper documentation. I'm sure, Justin, a part of your group, I'm sure you have a platform where you've got all of these different modules that they can either listen to or the documents. Like we didn't have the proper documentation on the front end. The homeowners are unsure of their coverage, right? They're just worried about their everything is destroyed, and we'll figure things out. They'll be appreciative on the back end, right? But sometimes it's maybe they don't have the coverage. Maybe they have an ACV policy, right? If they have an ACV policy, all of a sudden you've got somebody that thinks they're going to have a full replacement, and they don't have the 40 grand if it's a roof, or the 400 grand if it's the house. So we learned those mistakes. There's also, I just got to say it. There's also people that when they get insurance checks, right? Like if you don't do your endorsements properly, that this has happened in roofing. People all of a sudden in our world, if we're remodeling a whole house, we help them with the adjusters and we help them finish their claim up to $400,000, $1 million, $4 million, whatever it is. Some of those people have never had that money in their hands before. And they all of a sudden sometimes forget what you did for them early on. And it turns into a collection process sometimes. So there's my disclaimer on the bug eyes of seeing those big jobs.
So I'm curious with that, did you foot the bill on these restoration issues a lot of times, or did you make the customer pay and then wait, and then the homeowner gets the money from the insurance? What was your methodology?
Yeah, so the way my partner and I did it back then is we were trying to float demo, dry, like, so we're talking about outside of just roofing. So we'd dry the house in, we dry them in, we tarp it, temporary, structures that we board up the windows. Do some demo, the mitigation, maybe some water extraction. And then from there, we didn't do this in Harvey. Harvey, we started moving and putting back. And Harvey was 2017, I think. But in Hurricane Laura, Delta, we got to where we'd get them stabilized, right? And then at that point, we'd set up and we'd do all the walks with the adjusters. We had our own appraisers, so we would go through. And that's key too. Like, just as a side note, we never got to that. Like, if you're going to get involved in these jobs, you need to have somebody that's licensed and Xactimate to write your scopes, somebody that knows what they're doing, because there's a lot of ways that people are getting themselves in trouble, and they're not trying to be shady or screwy. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And in the contracting world, unfortunately, I'm glad, Justin, that you've got the platform. I didn't have a Justin Ledford then. So we just, it was a lot of asking for forgiveness for certain things, because you're told you can do these.
You didn't know that you couldn't represent or talk about policy. You didn't know.
Yeah, I know a lot. I've got a lot of knowledge about this. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
let's call your insurance carrier right now and I'll talk to them and tell them that they need to pay you X, Y, Z. So yeah, there's just, we didn't know those things. So I'd say get a consultant involved, get somebody, Justin, somebody like you, get plugged into a program and yeah, just make sure that you've got those things covered.
I'm curious, let's change gears a little bit. You also have been able to get into a unique realm of working with hedge fund investors who have hundreds of single family homes. That requires, from my perspective, a very unique networking skill. How in the world did you get locked up with these hedge funds? And explain to our contractor group what it is you're doing with those hedge funds.
Yeah, so there's an interesting world. So we were the evolution, right? We talked about multifamily, we talked about large loss insurance, and we just in November, it was actually a guy that worked for me, a subcontractor that came to me, and he said he was working for another sub, and he was trying to borrow money to get tied into these guys. Long story short, so one of our field guys, weirdest story, one of the field guys said, hey, I'm working for a company that's working for this big fund. And naturally, you guys know, if you're the owner of a good sized construction company and the guy that you pay $180 a day comes up to you and is like, dude, I've got the opportunity for us. Like, here's the business model. You're like, meh. And he kept on. And what happened is I told him, I said, do me a favor. Tell me when the decision makers are in the room, when they're going to be walking one of these properties, and I promise I'll go over there. I said, but they need to be there. And sure enough, man, there was the whole corporate staff was in from Arizona. It was a weird deal, but I got in front of them and I kind of crashed somebody else's job site, I think. But that was one of them. And it was like, hey guys. But so it was a connection. These single family rental funds, if people aren't familiar with them, you can Google single family rental. These funds, all they're doing is buying literally 1,000 homes a year. San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Arizona, all these markets, 1,000 homes in every one of these markets. And man, they're buying these as rentals. Their rental properties are long-term. Take it one step further, because the real estate climate has, been just kind of a shit show, right? Everything's been so just so overpriced, right, and inflated. They're now actually, some of your investors, if you're roofers, you might look into this. These guys are now building communities. They're building like a tract home subdivision with just rental properties. So imagine I'm a developer. You're going to build this entire subdivision, and they're all rental properties. They're not going to be sold. And so we've been hot and heavy with them. We went to zero to millions and millions of dollars worth of business with them just really overnight. And it's funny because I was getting out of a large loss, right? Because we talked earlier, Justin, that I've got kids and a family, and I was doing a lot of traveling. So I was trying to get out of that. And I was going back into full-time investing. And then this deal came across my plate. And you guys know, as contractors, it's like, you might try to get away from it sometimes, but like, it's in your blood, right? Like, these deals generally always fall in your lap. And I honestly was kind of going, you know what? I'm going to put contracting on hold right now. I'm just going to go to full-time investing. And this opportunity came up, and I brought in a partner to help with the operating side. And it's just been, it's been balls to the wall. And we're still doing multifamily. We're still doing insurance loss, mold, mitigation, those things, but trying to do a lot of that locally.
That's incredible. You went from the thing that I'm taking from this is you've diversified your construction portfolio. You kept showing up and giving excellent service to your clients, and you just kept doing good work, and people kept referring you work. So with that being said, you are an investor who got into construction. What would you say to the contractor? What would you say is one of your best success secrets to growing your network or your business?
On the contracting or investing side?
Whatever you want to talk about, brother.
Man, I guess from a contracting perspective, there's a couple of ways, right? Like if somebody's super green, or let's say if they're a roofer or just a small GC or a painter, and they're really wanting to get into this world, I'm not usually the networking event type of guy, because we've grown our business by serving clients, right? And it goes back to probably like both of our roots of like Cutco, like, right? We're hunters. Like that's how we were raised, right? To hunt and go find that, and then build rapport, get those referrals, and really just grow kind of organically. So, but if you don't have that, I would say, man, get plugged in, start meeting people. We just landed a $2 million job, and we landed that job by meeting a maintenance man in an apartment complex. Like that's one thing I'll tell everybody on here, that like everybody's looking for this guy, right? Like we want to find the CEO, we want to find the decision maker, but it's not always that guy. That guy's generally not going to pay attention to you, A. And so, man, we met literally the maintenance guy, and you better believe we took care of the maintenance guy. But the maintenance guy.
How'd you meet this guy? How'd you meet him?
He actually was one of our clients at with the single family clients. One of their project managers had a brother that was a maintenance man at this apartment complex. And he asked, hey, do y'all know anybody that can do, they needed roofing at the apartment complex. They needed to reno 150 of the units. And so big contract, right? So I would say make sure that you're always networking, meeting people, letting people know what you do. Attend those networking events. If you're newer to the world, the multifamily, there's meetups in every city. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but there's meetups in every city for investors that invest in like multifamily communities, or they want to get into those communities. So you can go to those meetups. They're free. They generally have one a month, and there's generally a bunch of them throughout the cities. But yeah, just do that, man, and be authentic, and don't be a douchebag, right? Like just be a normal guy, and don't try to flex on everybody, and be humble. That's my key. And investing, by the way. What's that? Go ahead.
One of the things I know that you're really good at is rapport building. And most people, when they hear the word rapport, they're like, what is that? If imagine the person you're talking to has a necklace on them that says, make me feel special. And that's how I teach it to my sales guys. Like, imagine that's your favorite rock star that you've been wanting to see your whole life. Like, make it about them, and they'll fall in love with you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. And making real connections with people. And again, like we talked about, I use the don't be the douchebag term, like making connections with everybody, the maintenance man, right? You never know who's going to lead you to the next deal. And that's not the intent on why you connect with people and why you love on people, but right, that's the byproduct of karma, or karma, religion, whatever you want to point towards. That's the thing, man. Just being authentic, being a good person.
So you've had success, you've created passive income, you're living a life where you're healthy, you have a great family, you've got kids, you got an awesome wife, and you're building your investment portfolio. I'm curious, not the stuff you've mentioned so far, but what's an investment that you've made that has surprised you? Not the RV parks, not the commercial buildings. What's something else an investment you've made?
Man, honestly, those are my investments. But as far as I will say something on the side is that I'm currently looking to get involved and sign up with a mastermind right now. And I'm a guy that I have paid for, and this might not be your exact question, but this is kind of the first thing that come to mind, because if you ask me what I invest in that's been successful, real estate, right? Or it's my business. But outside of that, not to get too long-winded, but outside of that, through my 20s, I made really good money, right? From the age of 19 when I started with Cutco to 30, $12 million in sales, good commissions involved with that when you're in your 20s. But I tried to do everything on my own. And I also tried to, maybe it was being cheap. Maybe it was lack of knowledge. Maybe it was lack of not wanting to be taken advantage of. But I didn't invest in education. I didn't invest in surrounding myself with people that knew what in the hell they were doing. Like right now, man, the best advice I can give anybody, contractor, I don't care if you're in a dental practice, whatever the hell it is, but so cliche, but play to your strengths, right? Like I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm really good at. And that's all I focus on. Like what I feel that I'm good at is sales, marketing, business development, right? Building teams and building relationships. That's all I do. I don't put numbers together. I've got a kick-ass accountant for that. I don't worry about taxes because I've got a kick-ass person for that. Now, when it comes to education, yes, there's a lot of free platforms out there like YouTube, and I listen to podcasts every morning, but it's impossible to learn everything you need to know. Like right now, going back to where I started with this, is that, I'm looking at joining a mastermind. It's a huge investment, very large investment.
Which ones are you looking at?
Actually, there's GoBundance, right, and a few others, but really the one that I'm highly interested in is Justin, obviously a Cutco guy, Justin Donald, lifestyle investor, and so I've been really impressed with his community because, and the same with yours, Justin. Like you guys have these platforms like government contracts. I'm not going to go read. I'm not a reader. I don't do research. Like that's not my strength.
Right.
And if I'm reading and trying to do research on government contracts, I'm going to miss out on the opportunity to make money on everything that I'm good at. Right. And so I'd rather just pay Justin and go, Justin, dude, give me the lowdown. Let me get this system. I want the plug and play. Like, give me the damn floppy disk that I can put in my computer, right, and just hit go. And so with your platform for government contracts, with Justin Donald's Lifestyle Investor, plug for him, by the way, if you guys haven't listened to the podcast.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing. Justin Donald is a rock star. I need to get him on this podcast and tell him hey, you got to talk to Justin.
Yeah, we'll tag him. But just kind of closing up on this topic here, big investment, right? Very big investment. But I was opened up and I've started interviewing some of the guys that are in his group. And man, the things that they're doing, it's just things that like they've already vetted all of the stuff in their field or the things that I'm interested in. And there's no way in hell I could read enough books or would have the time, the interest or the desire to read all of that stuff to become a guru at it. So I'm going to plug in, I'm going to invest. So back to your question here, that's really the investment that I'm looking at to yield the highest returns, tax savings, better deals, knowledge, just influence. I mean, just like it's just nonstop, man. Dude, I was not the guy before with this stuff, but I'm a believer now.
You literally just brought like almost a tear to my eye because for the last 10 years of my life, I was burn the midnight oil, go hard, figure it out myself, grinding, doing well. But then 3 years ago, I started investing in myself. And in the last 3 years, I've spent well over $200,000 in masterminds for myself, for my business, to learn these skill sets. And it's paid me dividends, like massive dividends. And it's given me the shortcuts and it's given me the blueprint and it's made life a lot better. Like when you have the answers of what other, guys who have $50-100 million net worth, what they're investing in, they're like, hey, here's the deal. You can invest in it too. You would have never known about that deal if you weren't a part of those groups.
Correct. Yeah. We just I had a question for one of the guys I called earlier. Actually, I had a 1 o'clock call right before this. And I've got a large amount of money I need to exchange. And a 1031 exchange, you have a certain amount of time to do this. Well, if I can't find enough deals myself, I have to do a like-kind exchange, which means if I sold this type of building in real estate, I need to exchange it into that type of a building. And those of you that aren't familiar with an exchange, a 1031 exchange it's a temporary vehicle to save money on your capital gains when you sell a property. It defers taxes. And so I can't find enough deals to pull this off, but let's see if I have my notes here, but he gave me a vehicle. There's another group, kind of like a REIT, but another vehicle I can invest in that would still qualify for the 1031. And man, there's no way I would have found out all that stuff. And that was just through a quick call, by being plugged in with a
what you can do? You can start a podcast and just interview all his people in his group and then not have to pay for the mastermind. Just saying. I'm just joking. No, but I'm serious. No, I'm just joking. But seriously, I did not.
Good book.
I did not know that you could do 1031 exchange. You have a piece of real estate. You make this much money when you go to sell it, but you're gonna have to pay a bunch of taxes on it. So 1031, you can put that money into a REIT.
So I'm not an attorney, a tax attorney, or CPA here. There is, and I have my notes here. Let's see, where did it go? I've got so many things written down for my last call. There is, I called it a REIT. That's not what he called it though. Let's see, I look like a fool. I wasn't planning on discussing this.
It's okay. Hey, listen, if you want to drop that in my face.
Here we go. I've got it. So 1031, if I can't identify enough properties to roll my funds into, to exchange into, it was a tick structure. And so you'll have to Google tick structure. But that's something that I just learned on the last call. And I'm going to dive into that, tomorrow and start looking. But essentially it's a way to invest, my understanding in layman's terms, invest in another fund or group, I guess, assuming the tick structure right, that is buying real estate. And so forgive my ignorance on the topic, but I'm always looking to learn, man. And that's back to the education. Like,
same here.
You don't know what you don't know.
Amen, man. I'm a part of some masterminds. Go Abundance is a phenomenal one. And we were in the canyons of Amarillo, a guy who owns 700 acres. It's the second largest canyon in America, and he has that canyon. And we were just hanging out with this guy around a campfire, and he mentioned how he runs his business, the SOG method. Never heard of it. You have to have a service manager, operations manager, and a growth manager. And then you get to be the CEO who shares the vision. When I heard that, I was like, wow, why am I not doing that? Then I implemented it, and now my business runs without me.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, and again, that's with contracting. In the past, I've been a GC, right? Hustling, grinding, but I've had a job, right? Like we've all talked about, like, are you the CEO or do you just own a job?
Yeah.
I've owned a job in the past, which is why I got not a bad taste in my mouth, but that's why I'm heavy into real estate investments, because it's passive, right? And I've got passive cash flow income. I mean, I live off, I don't know, the great thing is my passive income supports our lifestyle, and construction is there to fuel investments and other things. So we live completely solely off of passive. So if I wanted to go join Justin in Costa Rica, the good news is I could, but I wouldn't have the additional fuel from construction and contracting that I'm using to pour onto the fire to continue to invest. So as I'm investing, you've got monthly cash flow, but then also the appreciation of the assets. I just unloaded a property right now, just had an exit. I had an offer for somebody to buy this property 2 years ago, and I was ecstatic for the property. I actually went under contract. Thanks for the guy being a dirtbag. He backed out the day before closing. Had he have not backed out, I wouldn't have just closed on the deal that I did. That was 3x what it was 2 years ago. 3x what it was 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I was going, let's do this. Yeah. But that's the power of appreciation in real estate investments, is find something that cash flows. And on top of the cash flow, it's appreciating. So you're getting best of both worlds. And you also have depreciation, and the depreciation side and the appreciating side. So it's
and if you don't know what he's talking about, you can YouTube it. But basically what he's saying is, when you have real estate, you can have write-offs with your taxes, so you don't have to write such huge checks to the IRS every year. I'm curious, Marcus, to wrap this up, what would you say is your role now in your company? You've got a thriving business, but what is your role at your business?
So with Coltcam Consulting, our contracting business, I was intentional about when we kind of shifted gears in this different partnership. I was intentional about, like we said, I didn't want to own a job. I wanted to own a company. I want to be a full-time real estate investor, right? And I want to focus on those things, but I want my contracting to be able to fuel the fire for my investments. And so I was very intentional about this newer partnership that I have, of making sure that I have an operating role. But the biggest change is we took on professionals. We took on professionals to help run the day-to-day operations. And you guys know, as contractors, we're always looking at the bottom line. We're always going, man, Justin's a stud. He could run this company, but can I afford Justin? And that's the mistake I've made my whole life, is I've always in the back of my head going, God, that's so much money to pay such and such. But when you get over that mental hurdle, just like we talked about paying for education, when you get over those mental hurdles about paying for education and also paying to have the right staff and put those people in place, and then you can become that CEO, right? And you can spin, you're the radio control tower, right? Like I sit in my office. This office happens to be a building I own. I own the commercial building next door. I own an RV park behind here. I operate the construction business out of this office here. So I can kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on, but at a high level. And, one of the oldest, greatest sayings from a guy, Jason Owens, a long time ago.
He was my district manager.
That's hilarious because I still use this term every day. And man, not to be on a Cutco kick here, but so many, nuggets of knowledge here. But he used to always say, and you're going to remember this. I don't know if you're going to remember this, but he always said major in the major and minor in the minors, right? Yeah. Major in the major, minor in the minors. So, this is very basic information, but finally getting comfortable with paying for the right staff, taking yourself out of the situation and the day-to-day activities that aren't making what you're worth per hour, right? And just focusing on things that are, closing deals, meeting with the decision makers, right? And so that's my role. My role is from a high level, myself and my partner, to work with our clients. We want to make sure we're maintaining the relationships, we're training and building up our staff, but we're also enabling them to make their own decisions. Because I'm the number one. I mean, man, I've had a huge problem with this in the past, of feeling like I have to be a part or have a say in every decision, because I feel like, right, I've got the answer. And sometimes, guys, it's always best to just let people do things on their own. Again, so you can learn to become a CEO and not own a job. So that's what I tell everybody.
This has been amazing. Marcus, you're an incredible guy. You went from selling knives to owning RV parks to developing commercial buildings to doing large loss insurance claims to working with hedge fund companies. You're a leader. And if there's somebody within the San Antonio area where you're at who's looking for a leader to work with or work for, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, really anybody, throughout. We do business throughout, obviously Texas, San Antonio, or anywhere in the US. Feel free to reach out. You can reach me at, just email is Marcus, MARCUS, at Colt, COLT, Cam, CAM, Co. So Marcus at coltcamco.com. And Justin, you've got my contact as well too. So if anybody needs help, I'd love to help anybody out, mentor them, give them some advice and point them in the right direction.
Thank you so much, brother. This has been a blast.
And thank you. Thanks for reaching out. I'm glad we could connect.